society as it goes on, not only is it becoming more sensitive, but women are becoming more masculine. And from what I see more of is a lot of feminine men and a lot of men worrying about things that I never even worried about in my life, but it's on their mind. And to me, if a man is supposed to provide and protect certain things, shouldn't be on his list of things that he needs to worry about. Now, there are certain levels of grooming. We're going to talk about men first because I'm a man and I feel like I have more to say about that. I see a lot more feminine men. Yeah, feminine men. That's what I see a lot more of. Because when I see a woman, she would have to do certain stuff for me to be like, okay, she's a little bit on the masculine side. And it's hard to see that just off of her passing by or whatever. But I'll notice a man like doing weird stuff because I'm a man. And naturally I'm gonna compare myself and be like, why would I do that? Would I? And my example to that is I'm seeing a lot more of men like getting not necessarily dealing with their nails in any type of way. I don't care if it's nail polish. I don't care if it's when they get it light or whatever. I did not grow up on that type of stuff. Have never been interested in that stuff. I am not trying to make people feel bad if they are interested in that stuff. I just don't understand it. I don't understand. I was brought up, at a certain time of getting down and dirty. If something go on, if you're driving and the tire fall off, you this is over exaggeration, I understand. But at any moment you was ready to fight or protect or and it's like if you're too into how you look, it's like that is a hesitation that you can't really afford if you're in survival mode. If you're always trying to worry about how you look outside, your fresh shoes, fresh outfit, if something go down, that split second you're like, "Oh, I got my favorite outfit on. I don't want to do." That could be a split second that you need. And another example is I didn't want to talk about it because I don't want anybody to feel attacked. But I'll never forget I was at work and we had a little debate and I was the only one that was kind of outside of the debate because everybody else agreed. I didn't necessarily disagree. I just didn't understand it. But what happened was a fellow employee of mine, which is a male, he said that he wouldn't mind getting some roses from a woman. Now, I have never in my life received any type of flowers or anything from a woman. I have never. So it kind of shocked me. I'm like, what are you talking about? I'm like, that ain't weird, but can you, what do you mean by that? And he was like, he didn't mind it. He ended up getting flowers on Father's Day or something like that. And I'm like, getting flowers? And debate went back and forth, and other people was asked, and women was kind of on more on my side. They was like, I would never give a man some flowers. But as I thought about it, I'm like, yeah, because most women I deal with, they probably didn't think I would want some flowers for any type of day. So that's why he received it. And I'm not necessarily saying he's a feminine man, but that's maybe what the woman perceived him as. It's like, oh, he will like flowers. Not necessarily saying he's feminine, but that's what they see. Because I think, and it sucks because if you're so quote unquote masculine man, you would think cools and, socks, the typical things men get. But it's like, it is what it is. That's what the typical, that's what we see. And I made this video because I always go off of instinct. I don't necessarily go off of what society says and stuff like that. And society is leaning more on men's grooming because all women talk about, they don't want to say, "Oh, I want a man that it does this and you know fixes stuff around the house." They always talk about a man's attractiveness. That's all they say. They want to be attracted to the man, and men hear this. So of course, if a man wants to get a woman, he's like, "Okay, I need to work on my looks more." The problem is, a lot of the times when you switch over to that, you kind of lean so far into that all the other stuff you start lacking. You stop being hands-on with stuff, you stop doing all that stuff, and I'm not gonna say you're gonna forget how to do it, but you'll kind of fall off back a little bit and kind of just lean more on that because you can't go up to a woman and attract her by saying, "I know how to fix stuff." No. That's just like walking up to a woman saying you got money. Well, if you put that on the table, that's what she's gonna see you as, and that's what she's gonna use you for. I'm talking more of, having a balance between having a certain level of grooming. You don't look dirty. You can have your own style or whatever. But when I was growing up, I knew one person that was a shoe fanatic, and that was my cousin. He had all shoes. He was really into shoes. He wasn't just doing it for like everybody else. He was just really into it. Nowadays, every man got 20 pairs of shoes in their closet. And I'm like, I did not grow up on that. That's not how I felt. I was always like a pair of black shoes, pair of white shoes, and some boots. That's it. I'm not trying to have 1,000 pair of shoes to go with this outfit. And I don't understand that. I'm like, how do you put all your energy into that, but you don't know how to do this, so you don't know how to fix that? I don't understand it. And like I said, not all based off society, it was always how I felt. I was always willing to just get down and dirty with anything, like go under a car and all that stuff, but things are changing. But we're gonna get into why I think men are becoming more feminine. It's not what everybody else is, like they grew up with a single mom. Yes, that plays a factor. But I also know men that grew up with single mothers and they're manly as can be. They don't be all feminine and stuff. So that is a factor, but I think that's what people just hurry up and just go to. But the masculine women, because the video is which one's worse. I'm going to tell you at the end which one I think is worse. But masculine women, like I said, I can't tell if a woman's masculine passing by, on the street. But the women I know a lot of women that would be labeled as masculine women. Now, the thing is, a lot of these women are masculine, they say, is because they have to be. They was not necessarily forced into, but they kind of just, jump into that, especially when they have children. You're not going to meet too many quote unquote masculine women that are just kidless. They don't have any kids, they're kind of just trying to get degrees and stuff, or they're working or having fun or whatever. It's usually women that have kids, period. Whether it's one kid, two, three, because once they become a mother, they're all about the child. They're all about making sure the child's good, and that's where the protecting coming from. That's where the providing come from. So they just go into that trait, and a lot of the times, these women that do turn into masculine women, they might run into a lot of feminine men, and they're just adapting to their environment. They're adapting because, especially if they had a father that they deemed as being a manly man. So typically, if a man has a daughter, he's going to teach her certain things so she won't need a man. Well, those same women that meet a man and be like, wow, you don't do anything manly. She wants him to be around because, everybody wants companionship, but she just does what her dad taught her. And it may look masculine to other people, but it's like, hey, I have to do it. It has to get done. We have to do it. And then a lot of people think that a masculine woman, just I don't want to bring up the sexuality thing like the lesbian stuff or whatever, but like masculine women, they used to be what's that called? What was that called? A tomboy. It wasn't even downplayed back then. It was just like, oh, she's just one of the boys. She's the homeboy or whatever. But now it's like it's to the extreme to the point where I think women are leaning to that side because they just have a hate for men. They hate them, so they're trying to inch men out. Like, okay, we don't need them. These women are like, we don't need men at all. So they're just going to be super masculine and super strong. And I hate the fact that it comes to the point where a woman will like be as masculine as possible just to test the dude and see if he's can go to her level. Because I did back in the day, I used to understand. I was like, okay, a lot of these women are being masculine or whatever because they're trying to weed out the weak men. But the problem is, if you do that, you're going to become unattractive to the man that you actually want. Like the man that you want is going to see how you interact with people and stuff like that, and he's going to be like, I don't want that. Now, the feminine or the weaker men in society's eyes, yeah, they may, be like, oh, that's all I can get. They might be, but the men are not going to be attracted to that. So this masculine traits, these women walk around for whatever reason, because it's a reason for it. People don't just wake up and be like, I want to be this. That's you're probably going to be single for a long time because no man wants to have to handle that, especially if he's actually into women. Men that are actually into women are into softness and peaceful, interactions. We don't want somebody that wants to prove that they're stronger than us, because that's another trait. I think a lot nowadays women are trying to prove that they can do what men do. So it's like it to everybody else eyes it's like a very masculine trait, but she's just trying to prove that she not that she don't need men, but she would want a man more than need him. I can do that. I can do that, which is good. But just like a feminine man losing his masculine trait, women can start losing themselves where it's hard for them to find the feminine in them. That's the thing. If you lean too much on one side, because everybody needs that balance, it's just men have a little bit more masculine and women have a little bit more feminine. But if you flip flop it, you're doing too much of anything, it's bad. And once you're stuck in your ways like that, it's hard to come back from that because anything is going to be uncomfortable when when people sit you down and be like, "Hey, you should be like this." It's going to be hard for you. You're going to feel attacked. You're going to be like, "No, this is who I am." Is it really? Or was you just adapting to your environment? Because I don't want to. We can go back to the men's side because I don't want to talk bad about men and say they're becoming more. But I see it. I see it. I had a stepdad that I say this all the time. It could be 20 degrees outside. The car broke down. He was out there, no gloves, with a coat on, fixing it, not complaining about the weather, not saying he was tired. Back then when I was making mistakes and I was outside doing stupid stuff, 3 o'clock in the morning, I had a flat tire with no tools. He would pull up. Yeah, he probably was upset, but it was like he was on go and he never complained. So that's what I grew up on, not complaining about stuff and just doing what needs to be done and not doing stuff for acknowledgement, not doing stuff just for people to give me a pat on the back. I was just willing to do it. Now that's a whole nother story. That made too much of anything is bad because you don't want to just give yourself to the world and then, with no acknowledgement, but still, that's what I was brought up on. So all these men, and like I said, hopefully people don't feel attacked, but all the men that are overly worrying about how attractive they are, overly worrying about proving that they have money and stuff like that. I don't get it. Especially the men, you know, I see a lot of rich men or people that have a lot of money getting their nails done. You know what I'm saying? I understand going to get a massage, but like getting your nails, as long as they're not dirty. That's why I was like a certain level of grooming, of course. You don't want to be a dirty man, but just overly pretty, overly. And then I do understand when men have hair. If you have long hair, yeah, you got to get your hair done. You don't want it to look dirty. I understand that. But it's just nowadays it's just going overboard. And I think this is what I want to talk about though. I think a lot of the reason why men are kind of being like looked at as feminine is because it's not like they're not manly. It's like they are see that society doesn't appreciate them. So they're like, I'm not doing that. It's time for them. They're starting to like switch up and be like, all right, I ain't doing, I'm chilling. I'm gonna relax. When it's a fight going on, instead of breaking it up, they're like, I don't want to be a part of that. I'm good. They feel unappreciated. So it's looking like they're feminine because they, finally saying stuff, finally talking back and saying how they truly feel. But it's not really feminine. It just looked like that. Because back in, the 60s and 70s, men would just work and come home. They wouldn't argue. They wouldn't, be called sassy because they didn't say how they felt. They just dealt with the pain and they kept it moving. Now that these men are like, I'm tired of that. You're not gonna just drag me to the ground and I can't say nothing because I'm gonna look sensitive or no. That's not how it works. Everything is switching, everything is flipping. I think once a lot of these women start appreciating or saying that they appreciate men, you'll see more men being like, okay, I'm appreciated, so I'm gonna do it. But a lot of men ain't they not pulling over if you got a flat tire. If you're a woman, heck no. Besides the fact of feeling like they're about to get set up, they're like, ain't nobody finna appreciate that. We go on the internet, we hear what people say. It's all about what a man has to offer. So that's why I feel like a lot, a large portion of men are starting to be like, yeah, you can call me sassy, you can say I'm sensitive because I'm telling you how I feel, but I'm gonna say how I feel and I'm gonna move along. And I feel like I seen this podcast. I don't ever want to steal nobody's, great questions. But on this podcast, because the reason why they asked this is because women always say, I am more feminine. A man has to bring that feminine out of me. Well, he flipped it and was like, should a man only be, should a woman have to bring out the masculine side of a man? And he flipped it. He asked her questions and, try to make her look stupid, which, it's the podcast, it's a clip. That's what they're there for. But it's like, I hate when women say, you have to make me be feminine. Once you come around and show that you're masculine, you'll make me be feminine because no, ain't no woman ever gonna make me like had to make me feel or show masculine energy. Never. That don't work like that. I'm that all the time and you'll see that. It's not like I'm feminine and then a feminine woman come around and now all of a sudden I'm masculine. It doesn't work like that. Okay. You can't blame other people for what you do. Just take a I was about to say take accountability. I'm tired of that word. But you have to face your problems and be like, okay, society made me like this, but I chose to be like this. So it's time for me to go back to my energy. And I think that's why a lot of people be drained with their energy is because they're not necessarily something they're not, but I feel like they're doing something for the wrong reasons. Men are like falling back from showing the masculinity or being masculine because they're feeling like they're not appreciated. And women are being more masculine because they feel like either A, they're trying to prove they don't need men, or B, they literally got a child and they have to be both parents. And that just grew them into being like, you know what? I'm gonna have to whoop him and nurture him and confuse the child where he grew up and he don't have his mental state gonna be all over the place. So it's both sides' fault. Okay. And I'm not talking about sexuality. I'm not talking about um when I say masculine woman, I'm not talking about, and when I say feminine man, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about heterosexual people that lean more on the opposite of what you would think they should be, if that makes any sense. I'm talking in code because I'm on YouTube and they be, striking people and doing all that extra stuff. And this is a conversation that need to be had. I would love to hear people's input. I would love to hear how people feel about it. Usually when you hear these type of topics, they're negative and people try to hurt people's feelings and try to, make people feel bad about the way they move. But a lot of the times people adapt to their environment. They adapt to their situations and based off the interactions and stuff like that. And like I said, a woman being raised by a man, and then a man being raised by a woman, it's gonna be you're gonna lean towards whatever side they was on. I was raised by a single mother for a long portion of my life, and I got some good traits and bad traits out of it, but I feel like I'm the exception. That's just how I feel. I may be 100% wrong, but I feel like I'm the exception. I feel like I was a little bit too manly to the point where I don't fit in anywhere in society because it be these men out here, they different. They different. Like I said at the beginning, go back and watch what I said because I don't want to repeat it because I might get in trouble for saying it, but they leaning more on that, and I want to hear people input because I want to know too. Like, why is everything flip flopping? Why is everybody going opposite directions? I don't get it because now it even more people gonna be single, even more. It's just gonna get worse. And I know a couple of, and this is I'm a, just a, I know a couple of women that are actually into more feminine men. I know that, and they could be lying because I used to hate when women be like they like ugly men. I feel like you really don't, but you just like what come with it or what you think is gonna come with it, which is a man not cheating on you. And I think a lot of women they want a man, but they want to kind of control the situation. They want a man that's kind of like, yes, I do whatever you want because they don't really want to have to deal with a masculine man and how stern he is and how he's straight to the point and he don't play no games. Some people don't want to deal with that. That's that old school man. He don't play no games. He don't talk much, but when he does, it's over with. So I go live Monday through Thursday. I try to go live as long as possible, but I've been under the weather lately. I don't know what's going on. Where I'm at, the weather going up and down, so that might be what it is. But Monday through Thursday, 11 a.m. I try to be on time. I would love to have conversation with y'all. I have a different topic every day because I don't want to just be on here. I'm not that self-centered where I'll be like, I'm finna just sit here and people are gonna come talk to me. No, I want to have conversations. I want to build a community. I'm not trying to go viral. I want to build a community of people that think like me and love to talk about these topics. Some of them negative, some of them positive. I'm gonna be more negative on these topics. I'm gonna be more positive on these topics. Why did I say that?